Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be giving you guys my outlook on the Washington Commanders cornerback room. I'll be going player by player and talking about if I think they're going to make the roster and some expectations for them in 2022. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content so close to 8,000 subscribers. So please help me get there. Also hit that like button and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. So before we go player by player, let's take a look at the cornerbacks on the Washington Commanders roster. So their main guys, Kendall Fuller, William Jackson III, and Benjamin StJuice. So when they have, that's likely what it will be. You know, if they have three cornerbacks in the field, it'll likely be William Jackson and Kendall Fuller on the outside with Benjamin StJuice in the slot because he's been playing a lot of slot this off season. And then after that, it kind of gets thin. You got Danny Johnson, who's also more of a slot guy who can play outside. And then you got someone like Corn Elder, who was on the roster at points of the season last year. Christian Holmes, who the Washington Commanders drafted in the 7th round this year. And then you got Troy Apke and, Josh Drayden and some other guys. So the first three guys are pretty solid, but after that, there's not great depth. So this is a position that I think they could improve on in terms of adding a veteran guy for some depth, like maybe Chris Harris. I don't know. It just really depends on how they feel about Benjamin StJuice. But even then, he struggled with injuries in his first year, so you can't count on him and even some of the other guys staying healthy. So that's something that I question with this unit is really the depth of it, because I do like the first three guys, but after that the depth is not great. So let's go through one by one on each of these guys. So William Jackson III, obviously Washington gave him a pretty solid contract last offseason. I believe it was 3 year and about $13 million per year, and he did disappoint in his first year. He had some good moments, but only was able to play in 12 games, had a couple different injuries, I think knee injuries. Did have 2 interceptions, so at least he's able to, make some big plays, have some turnovers. But he had so many penalties last season, like a few, a couple face masks or 15-yard penalties, and he had a bunch of pass interference last year, through the first 6 or 7 games. I'm pretty sure it was something like that where he had one every single game, whether it be like a 15-yard penalty or a pass interference. He was struggling for sure, and he was even last offseason, every day you could, the media reporter was saying, let's say Terry McLaurin has a 65-yard touchdown on William Jackson III, whatever, Cam Sims, same thing. And I was a little bit disappointed or a little bit concerned, but at the same time I was it's just training camp. But it did translate a little bit to the season and into the season, and he's more of a man guy, and they were playing a lot of zone, but that's not necessarily on William Jackson III, but you want him to adapt a little bit. That's kind of on the front office and Ron for getting a guy that primarily plays man in a defense that plays a lot of zone, and they're good in zone. The first kind of 5-6 games of the season, they were playing a lot more man, and the defense was struggling, especially someone like Kendall Fuller. But when they switched over to zone, he and the rest of the defense, I'm talking about Kendall Fuller, played a lot better. So William Jackson III, he's got to be better this year. Got to limit those penalties, and I think, especially with secondary, it's really tough in the first year in a new defense, especially with a bunch of new guys around you. So I think he will be better this year, just because he's in the defense another year with the same guys. There's not many changes at all in the secondary, but I think he needs to be a lot better for him to be worth that 3-year whatever amount of money, $39 million contract, because they paid a decent amount of money for him, and he was injured last year and struggled at times. There was times where he was good, but he needs to be a lot better, and if he is, it'll help out the Commanders defense a ton. Next guy, Kendall Fuller, kind of had a rocky start to the 2021 season because he was playing more in the slot, which a lot of people wanted him to be in the slot. I did as well, but he played a lot better on the outside. Once they switched him to the outside, he was actually pretty solid, had 1 interception and 1 sack this past year, but he was very, very solid in coverage, always has been a very solid tackler. So I think you can expect the same thing from Kendall Fuller this year. He'll start for the Commanders on the outside with William Jackson III on the other end. And yeah, I think he's going to be solid. He's not an elite cornerback, but he's a very solid cornerback. He's had some really good years for the Washington Commanders. Also a very, very versatile player, which is good as well. And like I said, first 4 or 5 games weren't great, but the last half of the season was very, very good for Kendall Fuller. And you got to take PFF with a grain of salt, but they actually rated him as an 81.5, which is very, very good for PFF. Like anything over 70 is pretty good. You got an 81.5. Not a lot of players, get it that high. I think he's like one of their top rated corners, like top 3. And he's not a top 3 corner in the NFL, but I think he is. He had a better season than people think last year, and I expect him to have a similar type of season this year for the Washington Commanders. And you know what you're going to get from Kendall Fuller. He's going to be a very solid to good cornerback for you. Not elite, but very solid for you. So next guy, this is kind of the X factor I feel like on this Commanders, cornerback group is Benjamin StJuice. The Washington Commanders drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2020 NFL draft, and he did flash at times last year. Like there was times where it's like, man, this guy is special. He's got the right mindset, and he showed, he had some really solid plays last year. But then there were times where he struggled, like the first game of the season. But the bigger issue, in my opinion, was the injuries, the concussions. He had like 2 concussions last year, and he said they're his first 2 concussions, and that's fine. But like 2 concussions already in your rookie year, that is not a good start, because the more concussions you get, the worse they end up being, the longer it takes you to recover, and also the easier it is to get them. So like that's the biggest thing for Benjamin StJuice this year is staying healthy. He played 9 games last year, and again he's good, solid at times, not great at others, but that's what you kind of expect from a 3rd round corner. And there was times like he even was playing pretty well against Devontae Adams. So I think that he has potential, and they're playing him in the slot this season, that's what they've been playing him in the offseason in OTAs and minicamp. And we've heard some great things from Benjamin StJuice. He's had a really solid offseason. I think Logan Paulson said like Jahan Dotson is pretty much burning every corner, but he's not been doing as well. He's still doing well, but against Benjamin StJuice has been able to do pretty well against Jahan Dotson. So we'll see how he does in the slot. Maybe that usually those 6'3" kind of lengthier guys play more on the outside, but we have that hole in the slot because Danny Johnson is the next guy up besides Benjamin StJuice. So if Benjamin StJuice can play for you in the slot, I think that'll really, really help fill a void in this defense. And he has that talent. He's pretty quick, got good recovery speed, and he's got that length, of course, 6'3". Like he doesn't have elite speed, but I can't remember what he got at the combine. But he's fast enough, and he's got that length to make up for sometimes if he isn't able to keep up with Tyreek Hill or whoever. So I like Benjamin StJuice, and really hopefully this year he can just stay healthy and be solid in the slot for the Washington Commanders. And who knows, maybe eventually he will transition to the outside depending on what happens with William Jackson III. So those are the top 3 guys. I feel solid about those guys. A little iffy on William Jackson III, and who knows about Benjamin StJuice, but I like Kendall Fuller, and I think William Jackson III will play solid for them, and we'll see about Benjamin StJuice. Next guy, Danny Johnson. Doesn't even have a picture on the website, or at least I don't know, it's not loading. Last year I think he made the roster last year initially, I'm not completely sure, and he played at times for the Washington Commanders. I think he started a game or 2 for them, and he played, I think in the Packers game was a game he played a lot. He was okay in that game. He was, okay at times. He's just not a guy okay, there the picture finally loaded. He's not a guy you want starting, in my opinion. That's just my take. He can play at times like a backup slot cornerback if you need him to, fill in for a little bit if someone's hurt or if someone needs a few plays off. That's fine, but you don't want him playing 100% of the snaps. And he can I think he'll make the roster. He also can play special teams as well. Can be your backup kick returner, maybe even punt returner if you really, really need it. So he's a versatile player. That's what you definitely like about him. And Ron Rivera's kept him around for the last couple years. So definitely wouldn't be surprised if he made the team, and I think he probably will make the team for sure. I think him and another guy will be competing. I'll talk about him in a little bit. That other guy, Christian Holmes, he's not that guy that I think they're going to be competing with, but Christian Holmes, 7th round pick for the Washington Commanders. Usually 7th round picks are kind of iffy if they're going to make the team. Usually they have a little bit of an edge over some of those other guys, like those undrafted free agents. But Christian Holmes, the position doesn't have a lot of depth. The cornerback room doesn't have a lot of depth. So he has a solid shot to make this roster this year. 6'1", coming out of Oklahoma State, 24 years old, 205 pounds. Don't know, a ton about him, but, I think he will make the roster and will, probably will play some special teams early on. Don't expect him to play a ton in the secondary because, he's a 7th round rookie cornerback, but who knows? We'll see. We'll learn a lot more about him in training camp and then finally in the preseason. But I do think he will make this roster, and if that's the case, then I think Kendall Fuller, Benjamin StJuice, William Jackson III, Danny Johnson, and Christian Holmes will be the 5 cornerbacks. And they could keep 6, and the other guy I think could make the roster for the Washington Commanders is Corn Elder. I've heard a lot of good things about him this offseason, like, in OTAs and minicamp. We'll see how things progress, but I've heard his name a lot in terms of getting interceptions. He was on the team last year at times. He also is a former Carolina Panther. Only thing is, I could definitely see him on the roster at points in the season, but I think he's a guy that easily could clear waivers. So if you don't have him on the initial 53, eventually once some, room is, made, let's say Logan Thomas goes on IR, Chase Young or someone else, you can bring up Corn Elder and, no one's going to pick him up. That's just my thoughts. I think they like him for sure, and I definitely think unless another team picks him up, I think he'll be on the roster at some point in this season. So, he's a guy that Ron Rivera and company definitely likes for sure. Troy Apke, I don't know. He's a cornerback / safety, but he's really not even a part of the defense. He's just a special teams guy. He's a special teams guy, and some people really still think like I think in my 53-man roster prediction, recorded that a couple weeks ago, but finally I uploaded it yesterday because I was on vacation. But I said Troy Apke wasn't going to make the team because, they got Derek Forrest, who wasn't on was on IR to start the season after he made the 53. They put him on IR and he was out for 8 weeks. They knew that was going to happen. He was a special teams guy coming out of college, and they drafted Percy Butler. So I think those guys, they'll kind of take over for Troy Apke, and both those guys can play on the defense. Troy Apke really can't unless it's an emergency situation. So that's kind of why I think he won't make the team, because they kind of found replacements for him. Who knows? Maybe he's able to make the team, but I just don't think so. I think this will be the first year he doesn't make the team, but who knows? He has a shot. He definitely has a shot for sure. It just depends on how these other guys are. Like if Christian Holmes can play special teams, and we know Percy Butler and Derek Forrest can, I think, Troy Apke is going to be on the outside looking in. So that's kind of it for each individual player. How do I feel about this room? I think it's an okay room with some upside. Kendall Fuller, again, we know what we're going to get from him. The biggest X factors are William Jackson and Benjamin StJuice. If those guys can play well, this group is going to be a very solid group. But then also, if any one of those guys gets injured, I don't really like the depth behind them. So maybe that, again, Chris Harris, maybe you can sign him. There's a couple other corners that they could sign. Wouldn't be surprised if they did so. So yeah, there's a lot of positions on defense where I think the depth isn't great. Like linebacker for sure, defensive tackle besides Fedarian Mathis, they don't really have anyone there. And yeah, those kind of are the biggest positions, even defensive ends. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and peace.